girl and nobody knows what the hell you're doing. That's it.
I'm not.
And you sit there with a cowboy hat going, I'm not going to be on.
Don Rickles truly hated him more than anyone. Don Rickles was born Donald J. Rickles on May 8, 1926 in Queens, New York. Emerged from humble beginnings to become one of the most legendary comedians and actors of the 20th century. Growing up in the Jackson Heights neighborhood, Rickles was raised in a Jewish family and developed a sharp wit and quick tongue at an early age, traits that would later define his career. His father Max Rickles was an insurance agent and his mother was a housewife who doted on him and recognized his talent for humor even as a child. After graduating from high school, Rickles briefly attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, initially intending to pursue a serious acting career. His dream was to become a dramatic actor on Broadway or in Hollywood, but his naturally fast-paced humor and sharp observational skills slowly steered him toward a different path, the world of stand-up comedy. Following his service in the U.S. Navy during World War II, where he served as a seaman aboard the USS Cyrene in the Pacific Theater, Rickles returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. Like many veterans of his generation, he struggled at first to find his footing, but his natural charm and charisma drew him toward entertaining. By the early 1950s, he began appearing in nightclubs, initially as a struggling actor who would use comedy as filler material between lines. When he realized audiences responded better to his quick insults than to his serious attempts at drama, Rickles leaned fully into comedy. This decision would forever change his life and leave an indelible mark on the world of entertainment. Rickles soon carved out a unique niche for himself in the comedy world. Unlike most stand-up comedians of the time who relied on telling structured jokes or humorous anecdotes, Rickles pioneered an entirely new approach, insult comedy. He would step on stage and immediately begin poking fun at members of the audience regardless of their background, profession, or social status. His sharp tongue spared no one from Hollywood celebrities to everyday fans. And he developed a reputation as the man who could roast anyone yet still be loved for it. His nickname, Mr. Warmth, was an affectionate irony capturing the fact that while his words were biting, they were always delivered with good-natured humor and underlying affection. A pivotal moment in Rickles' early career came when Frank Sinatra, one of the biggest stars in the world, attended one of his shows in Miami. Instead of treating Sinatra with deference, as most performers would, Rickles boldly insulted him from the stage, joking about his power and influence. Rather than taking offense, Sinatra was charmed and became one of Rickles' greatest supporters, introducing him to other celebrities and cementing his place in the Hollywood elite. This friendship not only elevated Rickles' career, but also showcased his courage and confidence, qualities that made his comedy irresistible. Soon, Rickles was a regular on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson and variety programs like the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts, where his lightning-fast insults became the highlight of the evening. Although stand-up comedy was the foundation of his career, Rickles was also a versatile actor. He appeared in films such as Run Silent, Run Deep, 1958, alongside Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster, and later in comedic films like Kelly's Heroes, 1970, with Clint Eastwood. His ability to adapt to both serious roles and comedic ones demonstrated his range as a performer. In the 1970s, he starred in his own television sitcom CPO Sharky, where his sarcastic humor and biting remarks were channeled into the role of a U.S. Navy chief petty officer. He also became a frequent guest on talk shows, beloved for his unpredictability and ability to make even the most serious host burst into laughter. Rickles' career experienced a revival in the 1990s and 2000s, thanks in part to his role as the voice of Mr. Potato Head in Pixar's groundbreaking Toy Story franchise. A whole new generation of fans came to know him through his work in animated films, where his trademark sarcasm was perfectly captured in the character. He also continued touring well into his 80s, performing in Las Vegas, Atlantic City, and across the United States, drawing audiences who adored his unapologetically old-school style of comedy. Unlike many performers of his era, Rickles never changed his act to suit modern sensibilities. Instead, he trusted that his audiences understood his humor came from a place of love rather than malice. On March 14, 1965, Don Rickles married Barbara Clark of Philadelphia, a union that would prove to be one of the most enduring and defining aspects of his personal life. Rickles, who had built a reputation as the merchant of venom on stage and television for his biting, no-holds-barred comedic insults, often revealed a much softer side when speaking of Barbara. Their marriage was seen by many of his colleagues as a stabilizing force, grounding him in a world where fame, ego, and career pressures often derailed relationships. Rickles had openly admitted that finding love had not been easy for him. In his 20s and 30s, despite being a rising star in the comedy circuit, he struggled romantically. His sharp wit and sarcastic edge, which audiences adored, often worked against him in intimate settings, leaving potential partners either intimidated or unimpressed. By the time he met Barbara, he was already 38 years old, a bachelor whose friends had begun to wonder whether he would ever settle down. Their meeting came about through his agent, a chance introduction that would change the course of Rick's life. Ironically, Rickles confessed that what drew him to Barbara was her inability, or perhaps unwillingness, to laugh at his jokes. Unlike so many others who hung on his every wisecrack, she was unimpressed with his humor, and this unexpected response captivated him. To Rickles, Barbara's grounded nature and quiet strength stood in stark contrast to the superficiality of show business, making her the perfect partner for a man whose life was otherwise dominated by the chaos of entertainment. The couple went on to have 2 children, Mindy and Larry, each of whom carved out a place for themselves in the world of entertainment, albeit in different ways. Mindy Rickles pursued acting, following in her father's footsteps in front of the camera, though with her own distinct path and style. Larry Rickles, meanwhile, found his calling behind the scenes as a producer. Tragically, Larry's life was cut short when he died of pneumonia at the age of 41. A devastating loss for the Rickles family. Don and Barbara, who had always been devoted parents, were deeply shaken by his passing. For a man who spent his life making others laugh, the pain of losing a son remained one of Rickles' most profound sorrows, a reminder of the fragility of life, even amidst fame and success. Despite the tragedies, the joys of family life remained central to Rickles' heart. In his memoir, he shared that his grandchildren, Ethan and Harrison Mann, offered him a fresh and unexpected perspective on his career. While adults admired his decades-long body of work, his countless late-night appearances, and his groundbreaking influence on comedy, his grandchildren were far more impressed by something much simpler. His voice role as Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story film series. For them, their grandfather wasn't the legendary insult comic who had sparred with Frank Sinatra or entertained presidents. He was the beloved toy from one of the most iconic animated films of their childhood. Rickles found humor and joy in this generational gap, often joking that all his years of hard work in comedy were eclipsed by a talking plastic potato. Barbara, his wife of over 5 decades, was by his side through it all. Their marriage endured the highs and lows of Hollywood life, the challenges of parenting, and the personal struggles that come with long careers in the spotlight. Friends of the couple often remarked on the genuine affection and respect that defined their relationship, a partnership built on loyalty, humor, and love. When Barbara passed away from non-Hodgkin lymphoma on March 14, 2021, exactly 56 years to the day after their wedding, it felt like a bittersweet poetic ending to their shared journey. The symmetry of the date underscored the depth of their bond, as if even in death their story remained intertwined. When it came to Don Rickles, the self-proclaimed merchant of venom, there were very few people in the entertainment industry that he genuinely disliked. Most of the time, his harsh insults and razor-sharp barbs were delivered with a wink and a smile, intended to entertain and disarm rather than wound. However, according to those who knew him best, there was one actor who seemed to trigger something deeper and more personal in Rickles than his usual brand of insult comedy ever suggested. Denzel Washington. Rickles, who had spent decades ribbing everyone from Frank Sinatra to Ronald Reagan, reportedly found Washington not just difficult to warm up to, but a man whose presence irritated him in ways no other star ever managed to. The root of Rickles' distaste for Washington went beyond simple personality clashes. Rickles thrived in rooms where laughter flowed freely, where quick wit and self-deprecation allowed him to tear people down only to build them back up with shared laughter. Washington, however, carried himself with a level of seriousness, poise, and intensity that Rickles found almost impenetrable. Unlike many other celebrities who laughed along with Rickles' insults, no matter how cutting, Washington was notorious for his stoic demeanor, rarely giving Rickles the satisfaction of a smirk. To Rickles, who lived for the reaction as much as the joke itself, Washington's stone-faced silence felt like the ultimate rejection of his comedic style. It didn't help that Washington's reputation in Hollywood was one of commanding respect, authority, and gravitas. He was seen as an actor who elevated every role he played, a performer who carried with him the aura of dignity and discipline. Rickles, in contrast, was a creature of chaos, a comic who thrived on disruption, embarrassment, and discomfort. The clash between their styles and their public personas created an oil and water dynamic. Rickles, who could usually find a way to charm or tease even the toughest personalities, simply could not get through to Washington, and it gnawed at him more than he ever admitted publicly. Over the years, Rickles often used humor to mask his frustrations. But insiders noted that whenever Washington's name came up in conversation, Rickles' tone shifted. Instead of the playful venom he reserved for his Hollywood friends, there was a sharpness in his voice, a dismissive edge that was uncharacteristic even for him. "I'll tell you who doesn't laugh," Rickles was rumored to say privately. Denzel Washington, the man wouldn't laugh if you paid him. He makes Mount Rushmore look like it's in motion. For a comic who built his entire career on making people laugh in the most unlikely situations, Washington's impenetrability represented not just a personal annoyance, but a professional affront. In some ways, Rickles' animosity toward Washington revealed as much about Rickles himself as it did about Washington. To Rickles, comedy was a form of connection, a way of breaking down barriers and stripping away pretense. When someone resisted his approach, it wasn't merely a rejection of his jokes. It felt like a rejection of him. And so, while Rickles could shrug off countless hecklers, critics, or offended parties over his long career, he couldn't shrug off Washington's refusal to play along. This quiet battle of wills, Rickles' relentless need to draw a laugh, and Washington's equal determination to maintain his dignity, created a unique tension that left Rickles bristling whenever Washington's name was mentioned. Thus, while Don Rickles roasted presidents, celebrities, and friends with equal ferocity, there was something different about the way he regarded Denzel Washington. To Rickles, Washington represented the one mountain he could never climb, the one audience member he could never crack. And for a man whose entire life was dedicated to laughter, that single failure stood out more sharply than any of his triumphs. On April 6, 2017, the entertainment world lost one of its most beloved and influential figures when Don Rickles passed away at his home in Century City, Los Angeles at the age of 90. His death was attributed to kidney failure, a condition that had quietly weakened him in his final days, but did not overshadow the vitality and sharp wit that had defined him for so many decades. Rickles had lived a long and extraordinary life, one that spanned an entire era of American comedy. And his passing marked the end of an age when quick-witted, no-holds-barred humor was delivered with a personal touch that could make audiences laugh while still feeling included in the joke. At the time of his death, tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry with comedians, actors, directors, and fans expressing their admiration for his groundbreaking career and their sorrow at the loss of a man who had been both a trailblazer and a friend to so many. Rickles' final years had been spent surrounded by his family and the comforts of his home in Century City, a neighborhood in Los Angeles where he had lived for decades. Known for its elegance and proximity to the heart of Hollywood, Century City was a fitting place for Rickles to call home, as it reflected both his stature in the entertainment industry and his lifelong connection to the city that had been central to his career. Though he had slowed down considerably in his later years, Rickles remained active with interviews, television appearances, and voice work well into his 80s, proving that his love for performing never truly diminished. Even in retirement, he was regarded as one of comedy's most enduring legends, and his sharp humor never left him, even as his health declined. Following his death, Rickles was laid to rest at Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, a burial place known for being the final resting ground of many influential figures in Hollywood and the Jewish community. The cemetery located in the Hollywood Hills serves as a tranquil memorial site where families, friends, and admirers can pay their respects. Rickles' interment there placed him among fellow icons of the entertainment industry, symbolizing his lasting role in the cultural fabric of America. For his family, friends, and generations of fans, his grave became not only a site of mourning, but also one of celebration, a place to honor the life of a man whose humor and personality left an indelible mark on comedy and popular culture. Rickles' death at 90 years old also underscored the remarkable longevity of his career. Few entertainers had sustained relevance for so long, adapting across decades as comedy evolved, yet always remaining true to his own unique voice. From the smoky nightclubs of the 1950s to late-night talk shows, Las Vegas stages, film sets, and animated features, he maintained a presence that spanned multiple generations of audiences. His passing was therefore not just the loss of a single man but the closing of a chapter in entertainment history. As news of his death spread, tributes highlighted his gift for connecting with people, his fearless approach to comedy, and his role as a cherished friend and family man behind the spotlight. Right.